14 years of age at St. Peter Martyr School. What a privilege it is to present to you, my esteemed colleagues, creating a global community with music, mind, and spirit, the African American spiritual in the Kodaly music classroom. I became interested in the spiritual after researching it and discovering that the original slave transcriptions from the 1800s were written in hurried rhythms, devoid of rest or musical shape. As a singer, it intrigued me to answer the question of why the music of slaves and oppressed people in written form did not appear to reflect the intent of the spiritual as we know it. I thought the tempos of the spirituals in the original transcriptions were most accelerated and rhythmically driven than might necessarily have been the case if those doing the original transcriptions were whites, observing a ritual seen as primitive rather than church-going. Further research confirmed this supposition, and as I continued my research and augmented the rhythms of the arrangements of the original transcriptions, I realized how ideal their melodic and rhythmic structures were for pedagogical purposes. The African American spirituals are songs that come from the depth of the soul and are profoundly lyrical. Melodies soar and the singer's voice lingers in the nuances that transform the text from a jumble of words to music. Due to the sensory experience of singing, the body naturally moves. As a teacher, directing this energy to help students acquire core music concepts through singing, movement, and analysis of the music is essential for effective pedagogy. The purpose of this presentation is to share several experiences, experience the joy of singing and movement while creating the effective music lessons using the folk song of the African American child, the spiritual. As a Kodaly-inspired teacher, I can only look to his words to focus my music lessons on what is essential. As Kodaly once wrote, a deeper musical education can at all times develop only when singing forms its basis. Instruments are for the privileged few. Only the human voice can, accessible to all, free of charge, yet the most beautiful of all instruments, be the fertile soil of a musical culture extending to all. The spiritual lends itself to the music classroom in a most unique manner. Spirituals are impelling, and the melodic line evolves naturally and logically, making them easy to learn and to recall. There's balance between repetition and contrast melodically, rhythmically, and harmonically. The spiritual creates patterns of climax and resolution. The music reflects the expressive meaning of the text. The melody of the spiritual has a vocal range that's appropriate for young voices of children and a variety of rhythmic devices appropriate for pedagogy. Its primary pentatonic material, melodies, are ideal for oral training. Using movement while singing enhances the neural development of the child and integrates performance practice and music literacy. When writing the pedagogic sequencing for the use of the spiritual in the classroom, I look to the words of Kodaly for inspiration. Kodaly revered the singing voice, but also understood the importance of movement. As he once wisely wrote, singing connected with movement and action is a much more ancient and at the same time more complex phenomena than is a simple song. As a teacher, using quality song material and presenting it in a manner that builds on prior skills and lays the foundation for making conscious new skills is vital to ensure successful outcomes. Understanding how important movement is to imparting core music concepts must be cognitively realized for basic music skills, such as internalizing beat and subdividing rhythms to be actualized. The act of singing has a profound effect on a child's psychosocial development as well as their intellect. Singing with movement opens even more neural pathways to enhance brain development. The African American child naturally responds to movement just as every other child does. While singing these songs handed down from generation, As Gerald, an African-American student in my second grade music class at St. Peter Martyr School, wrote when asked how music made him feel, "I love to sing and dance. I just can't keep my feet from moving." As magnificent as the spiritual is, as a tool for music literacy, its greatest legacy, as Kodaly noted, was the difficulties of rhythm and melody are so complicated that if we do not overcome them one by one, we won't be able to cope with them. First, one must be able to read rhythm. The effectiveness of the spiritual as conveyors of rhythmic literacy is seen in my classroom regularly as my students boisterously sing, tap, sway, and clap without teacher, provocation, or direction. Guiding this enthusiastic response to the driving rhythm and passion evoked by the spiritual is a joy when a child's natural response is the unconscious experience made conscious days, weeks, or months later. It is of the utmost importance to thoroughly analyze the song material in order to create effective music lessons. Movement should also be an integral part of lesson planning, so its usefulness in imparting rhythmic literacy is fully realized. Children respond naturally to the vibrancy of the spiritual with movement. As children become more adept in coordinated movement, they're able to respond to the nuances of music. These differentiated movements are tools for assessment and a key for demonstrating mastery of musical concepts, such as form and awareness of musical phrasing, dynamics, and expression. The spiritual provides quality music literature to communicate such musical concepts as the organization of melody, rhythm, tempo, dynamics, and tone color. An awareness of music's expressiveness depends on the realization that all these elements contribute to the expressive purpose of music. As Kodaly said, music is an expressive tool to the human soul which is equally accessible to everyone. Music is nourishment and a comforting elixir. Music multiplies the beauty of life and its values. The meaning of the text and a thorough analysis of the music allows the teacher to determine the tone set, rhythmic devices, and by doing so, create ostinati and movement to support this pedagogical purpose. As Kodaly noted, a thoroughly knowledge of the material must preview everything, for anything else can be built upon this knowledge. Any effort to achieve aesthetic results which either precede or discard knowledge are equivalent to building castles in Spain. Now that I've even bored myself, I'm stopping. I use Kerwin hand signs. We use placement and notation. Just for right now, do, because there may be someone sitting in the room that does things or no, just do. And I'm not singing at pitch today because I still have jet lag brain. So where it lands is where it is, deal. Here we go, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. 16th on the top. Now what I would like you to do, remember direction number 2 when I started what we were going to do with our chairs? So just make space. There may be space enough here, but maybe not. So just try to shove some chairs out of the way. And what I'd like you all to do is to find, as I tell my children, find your partner with your elbow. This was Michael. We sang it at the beginning. This is an analysis of the tone set. These are my darlings. Every time I look at them, I just want to cry. I make me homesick. I miss my kids. So what I'd like you to do is do what my kids are showing you. Stand up, find a partner with your elbow. Why do you do that? Because as a teacher, they can't be hurting on each other or hitting each other. I know in your classroom, in your countries, your children are probably perfect, but my American children get into a heck of a lot of trouble